Okay, good evening. Today is Monday, August 7th, 2023. This is the Community Preservation Committee. My name is Jason Molina. I am the acting chairperson for tonight in lieu of Deborah Mooney, who is unable to attend tonight. I see we have a quorum tonight, so we can get started with today's meeting. First up in our agenda is to review and approve outstanding minutes. So we'll start off with the June 5th, 2023 minutes. Are there any questions or comments relative to those minutes?
Just that we have to delete that last line about the opening of a job opening that you were looking for.
Yes. So if anybody has saw in the drive, I had suggested to strike out the sentence that was relative, that I didn't think it was pertinent to the meeting content. And it was a side comment relative to the opening and planning. And I didn't think it was needed for the CPC.
Okay, good.
Anybody have a question about that or want to see it directly in the minutes?
Nope.
If there are no questions or comments, I'll take a request, a motion to approve the June 5th, 2023 minutes as amended.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Okay, 6-5 minutes are approved. Next is the July 17th minutes. Are there any questions or comments relative to those minutes? Okay, not hearing any. I'll take a motion to approve those minutes.
So
I so
moved.
move.
Gail, okay, second? Is there a second? Thank you. All right, all those in favor of approving the 7:17 minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, approved.
Oh, I get abstained from that, I wasn't here.
So noted. Thank you.
You were here on July 17th.
But not the 6-5 meeting.
Yeah, one of them I wasn't here. I wasn't here for one of them, I've only been to one meeting.
Yes, the June 5th meeting.
Yep.
And John Zagalli as well. Yep. Yeah, we can take that. Anybody have an issue with that? Any questions? We good? 2 abstentions? John?
Yep.
Okay. For June 5th.
June, yeah.
Melanie, you good? Melanie,
Hmm?
you good?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Next is review and sign bills. Chris, are there any bills?
We don't have any bills for this month.
All right, thank you very much. I need personal bills, Gal. Can't pass them along. Okay, number 4 is review and approve the community preservation plan update. If you recall, this is we've had this as a running item for the last couple meetings. There's a couple areas that we want to have updated. One is to revise the goals based on receiving feedback from the community, feedback from specific committees that we met with and seeing where those touch points landed on a heat map to say, okay, if a lot of folks were asking about something specific, is X covered by our existing goals in the CP plan? If not, this is the opportunity to revise our goals to adjust to that new reality. Also, in this update would be if anybody submitted any edits to the plan itself. So I think we'll just take it as you see fit. Chris.
Yep. So I think starting, thank you for that introduction. I think starting is I did update the heat map. As you'll remember, I was discussing kind of how we parse out and keep the 2022 comments and add in the 2023 comments. So part of that discussion, what it is, I kept the existing feedback comments, and you'll see an asterisk or a parentheses after each of the comments with 2022. If it was repeated in 2023, we add that in. As I kind of mentioned from the last meeting, the only one that had multiples for this year and shows up on the heat map is the Oak Island improvements. We had 4 comments related to improving Oak Island, so that's the only one that shows up. So though we're not as colorful as last year, we have a pretty clear analysis of where the focus is for the community this time around. But I think this helps, this preserves a lot of the 2022. And as we work through, I know a number of these have projects already permitted or proposed that we're working through. And so we can look at potentially adding some kind of a notation for when a plan is either in process or completed, whether we add a green star or something like that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have to add in the dates for each of the input that was collected from each of the boards and committees, but that's a minor administrative process, so.
Right, yeah, I think that can totally just be done offline. Just out of curiosity, 'cause I really can't see it from this distance, but
Oh, sorry.
unless does anybody have a question about where it is in the drive, if they want to follow along more detailed? If you have a machine with you, if you have a question, that's
It's gonna work.
direct you there.
Yeah, so this was uploaded to the meeting folder for tonight.
Meeting folder,
Which
okay.
you should
Oh,
have
it's in the
access.
meeting folder.
Okay,
Meeting folder for tonight.
all right. Kathy, able to find?
We'll find it.
Let's see here. Oh, and the final draft, is that?
Yep, and so I do have the final draft as well. I don't have the cover page. That's done in a separate program, Canva, which I'm not as familiar with. So Luis O'Neill is going to assist me with updating that. It's just the date and the table of contents, but the rest of the plan has been updated. I incorporated all the comments that we received from members to date, and I've included the updated letter that was provided by the chair. I did make one edit to that where we had all of the projects listed, and I added in the grand total of amount of funding that was allocated for projects for this year.
Nothing there, Chris.
Sorry, sometimes the screens get a little finicky. So just this total here is what I added, just
Okay.
to further show that accomplishment.
Anybody have any questions so far?
I guess the question I got is, that page, when I looked at it this morning, that page wasn't in my document.
Yeah, so this was brought up, so I, this afternoon was able to pull together all the comments and add them into the meeting folder for tonight. I don't expect that the members have had any chance to review those, but this is just, it's an updated
So-
from the 2022 plan.
Is that schedule basically last year's money we gave out?
Yeah, so at the Maytown meeting, these were
Okay,
all of the
okay,
projects that
all
were
right.
voted for, and then this is the grand total amount that was allocated at that town meeting.
So this is the exact list that you went over on the 5th, June 5th, the same amounts, rounded
Correct.
off, of course. So that's already been recorded in one set of minutes, and I don't need to worry about this now.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, other than that, these are all of the, so this is a fresh copy of the plan as updated, so. A lot of the edits were kind of fairly minor edits, adding in, changes to Board of Selectmen to Select Board, a couple of the historic section, historic resources section was updated, but I've incorporated all those into this PDF, so we could adopt it as is tonight, obviously with the cover page and table of contents to be added, but this and the heat map together constitute the updated plan, so I think it's at least substantial enough that the board could vote on it with those minor edits tonight.
Okay, the cover page has to say 2023.
Right,
Okay,
it would be August 2023.
okay.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Would it make any sense for a point of information to add a page as an appendix and list projects that were ARPA projects that, if they weren't ARPA projects, they would have been, they might have been CPA projects? There's a lot of park and stuff like that. It could have been, they could have been CPA projects, just as a point of information.
Yeah, I mean, I think there, we can also look at just what the regular municipal budget had.
what?
We're also gonna be looking at the regular municipal budget and say, well, could there have been a project this?
Yeah, but I was just thinking, where's that gonna show up?
Yeah,
It's probably gonna be buried in the selectmen's report
yeah.
that nobody will ever see. There was a lot of park stuff that was in there. I was just thinking for a point of information, so people could see other stuff that was done. You don't have to do it.
I would treat that from a perspective of saying if there's any resources that were updated because of just keeping it as a resources, not about how it got funded. So each of the sections has resources, needs, and opportunities. So if a resource came online because of whatever funding source, it's part of our resources now. So I think that's where we would generate, in my opinion, that's where we'd generate an entry into this document. If it's something came online. So I think certainly with ARPA changing Lake Street Park, down the line in the future, right? I think that it just becomes an update to this plan, saying, oh, now there's more play apparatuses over at Lake Street, as an example. Or if there was an update to Maple Avenue Fields to do something differently with the soccer fields, making it up. We would just note it as a change in the resources available in our community, however it got funded. Even if it was a private donation, we would just do that as a
How about a
resource.
footnote somewhere on the bottom that,
Yeah.
in addition, there was, because of ARPA, there was, I forgot how many millions. Maple Ave was like 1.7 million. Actually, it might have been more than that.
I think certainly we could.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good point to you're raising. I'm just suggesting, my opinion, treat it as a resource update. What I am recommending to the committee is that we move forward with approval tonight of the document. The reason being is we want to get into the workshop next month, right? And we really need to get the applications, we need to get this communique out to the community saying, this is done, the application process is already done, go forth and submit applications, because we want to get that cycle going. So if if there's a material change that's like, oh, we missed something, yeah, definitely we can update it. But I think at this point, I'm recommending not to make a substantial change or to add anything that's, may not drive the process or update the resources, or make a significant change. Anybody else have any comment or questions about that proposal?
I mean, the only thing I would say is we have a pretty narrow scope in terms of the CPC. In a lot of these projects, we reviewed all of the projects last year very thoroughly. By just taking these and listing them, we would not have reviewed any of that data. And all I'm saying is it possible that, maybe 9 things qualified and 1 didn't in whatever those projects were. So if we throw them in, later on, people might come back and say, you said that was a CPC project, and try to hang on to something that is not within our scope.
Right, right.
We'd have to crawl through all that data to see if it was really truly fulfilled a CPC acceptance, that in my mind.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
I would agree with that. I would also say, where do you stop? Because there were some projects that were privately funded that could have been CPC projects as well. So I think just list the ones that we know qualified and that were funded by CPC would be my suggestion.
Okay. All right, thank you.
It doesn't stop any other organization or body from saying, we funded these things that could have been CPC, but we used this fund instead.
Exactly.
Right.
And, I'd be very happy with that.
All right. So now to the plan, I see here, Chris, you've added, they got the strategic plan listed at the top. Thank you. That was a select board request. Other edits were, so can we just say who you got edits from so that everyone feels that their inputs were incorporated? So I know I sent a few edits in.
Deborah, Gail, and you submitted edits.
Okay.
And I've incorporated each of those.
Has anybody else submitted edits that are not known now? Not here. Okay. All right, cool, thank you. Deborah owned the cover page, which you took care of that, or about to, as you described earlier.
Yeah,
Yes,
we
yes,
will.
yes,
It's
thank you.
just
Yeah.
I don't have access to that program.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. Okay, so I think at this point, let's look at the point of the heat map was to drive any change to the goals. And Oak Island was relative to open space. Let's take a look at Oak Island from a perspective of recreation goals and open space goals.
Yeah, what I can do is, since that was mentioned multiple times, I'll pull up the actual comments that we received from the feedback, so we can look at those, and then side by side with the goals that we have.
Thank you.
Don't look, I'll get dizzy. Those are the goals. Sorry, let me disconnect for a minute.
Yeah, I would say, so Martha, we commented at last, and Mo, we commented last meeting about revising the open space numbers, the acreage. Given that Lake Street, Grove Street were purchased, and there was a parcel that, you know, up in the northeast that was added, gifted. Since there was no edits in that section, you know, there's no revision to that number for the plan. I don't think it's materially, I mean, while it is a good thing that we've increased that piece in the plan, not having those updates submitted, I don't think it's a material difference to hold up the plan. I think that can just be rolled into the next year's plan, as we're gonna do this every year.
Mo, you're very good at remembering acreage and numbers, but but you're a little busy right now.
I believe it was 6 acres.
As I recall, I think the total is gonna be about 15 acres, 14, 15 acres. We're thinking of
You mean between the two?
between the two areas. So there was Lake Street, Grove Street,
And the gifted.
and then
also.
the gifted off of Old Colony, right?
Yeah, so
Lake
if,
Street and Grove Street was just under 7, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
6, wasn't it?
6.2, I thought.
I thought it was 6.7.
They count
but
it as-
I had it at
I thought it was 6.2.
6. Whatever.
how many square feet?
I don't remember what the one up in the north end was.
I
So-
think it was about 6 or 7 acres.
Yeah,
So that's under 15 acres, which is fairly minor.
right, so
I'm comfortable
I'm just
going
calling-
with the plan.
you're good with it as is?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, I just wanted to, I just want to acknowledge that you both made comments at last meeting, and not seeing a submission to that point, I just want to close the loop that you're okay with moving as is, and just
Mhm.
know that that's something for the next update.
Mhm.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right,
So the Oak Island comments, we had one from Conservation Commission, which was Oak Island access, safety, and litter concerns. One from the Shrewsbury Housing Authority, Oak Island to make it more usable open space. So that's 2. Lake Quinsigamond Commission had Oak Island is an untapped resource. And Oak Island visitors unfortunately leave trash and party on this island. If developed into a recreational space, it would feel kept up. There's opportunity for ball fields or water access. So then going to the goals.
I think, could you zoom in on that, please?
Yeah, I'll do just the open space and recreation goals. I think the others are gonna get.
Okay, actually they'll fit. Cool. All right, so the exercise here is as follows. Remember that we've built up actually, Chris, you can just move the mouse over so that it removes the header or, yeah, there you go. Yeah, thank you. The plan started off, the goals started off with the initial seeding of the community preservation plan, as we received input from a very active meeting where we had a lot of community input, right, the public hearing, the first one. And then we had another one this past year. So all those needs got accumulated down to goals that we set, and they're at a high level. So the question is, the comments that we receive relative to Oak Island, do they change anything about these goals? Or are these goals still high level enough to address the needs that were raised this year? We also had an entry about the strategic plan. So if there's anything from the strategic plan, and I think I would like Mo, since you were obviously part of that space, if you're seeing anything from the strategic plan that also is not covered by these goals. So from that lens, Oak Island and strategic plan. I also will be looking at accessibility, because I know that was comments that came up from the Council of Disabilities. But start there.
If I may,
Please.
I see 1B as being very pertinent to this discussion. Safe and easy public access to open spaces. We're not talking about purchasing additional space or protecting additional space. We're talking about making better use of the space that is already protected. And it sounds like an issue for that is that it's not inviting because of the way people are using it. So that's part of safe and easy public access. And let's see. I think also under 2B, improve access to existing and future sites and access to existing waterways, recreational opportunities. So I think it fits well, and I don't see a need to expand the goals.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Relative to Oak Island and these goals as stated? Any revisions?
And then C is, existing waterways. Didn't you just say that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep. I also agree with your comments, Martha. I think it's already adequately covered. I think it just begs the opportunity that proponents of folks that want to make changes to Oak Island should approach Park and Recreation, right, and go through you, right, Carl,
Yeah.
and say, hey, what are some opportunities you can to work with that space?
Yeah.
Both looking at it from perspective of protecting that space, I guess Concom as well, right? This is not a Conservation Commission owned.
I don't believe.
I don't think so.
Mm.
Okay, but that's okay. The point is that proponents who want to see a change should need to start somewhere, right? And I think probably Parks is probably the best place to go start it, and then you start looking at land deeds and seeing who owns the parcel and just take it down that path, right? Like any other project proposal. But it sounds like we got some coverage here. Okay.
And I also wonder if the Lake Quincy Commission would have an interest or the charge to move something forward as well.
So that's actually
Certainly.
that wasn't that. That was I think that one of the comments were from LQWA, like, yeah, LQWA.
Yep.
Yes, that was
Yes,
because I was the one that was at the meeting. So yeah, okay, actually yes, that's it. I think it started there. It doesn't have to start with LQWA, but I mean I think the Parks, LQWA, or just if a resident is seeing this, watching this tonight, and says, "Oh, I have an idea," you can certainly approach the planning department, through email, or if you're in the building, stop by planning department and just inquire about how do I get a project CPA project started, and then we could take it from there. Cool. All right. So next is so Oak was covered. Were there any hits on accessibility? Because I'm only speaking about it based on I was at the meeting, so I know that that was on there, but I don't know if anybody else had accessibility come up in there as part of a heat map.
Yeah,
This
not specifically for, I'm trying to find it, it's a little bit, I gotta zoom over here, sorry.
Council on Disability is probably one line below Council of Aging in the spreadsheet.
seeing that.
All right, I'll narrate it. So one of some of the feedback I received relative to the accessibility was on the park side of things. That we know right now that what is a project that's going to assess all the playgrounds, and that's good, right? From CPA funded, but even if those projects that turn out after that don't come to CPA, but I think this is certainly a parks conversation as well to note, is not all, the playgrounds today, there's only, I think, one that's fenced in, but the other ones are not fenced in, and that's certainly a concern for some populations with kids who do not, who just wander off or run off, right? And that was definitely a concern for that population, saying, hey, this would be best if they could be fenced in, so that it could, if there's a safety concern, and I think that's in that realm of we're already going to be looking at these parks. Can this also be addressed while those parks are being looked at? Obviously this is a long-term thing, right? Because obviously this assessment is going on first, and then there's have your project proposal and a prioritization about park to park to park.
And it's got to get through the town manager and his budget, right,
Right.
to get funding for such things, right? So,
Right, but certainly if it's coming through CPA, right,
Different
we have a
funding
little
source.
more
Yep.
close attention to that. So I just wanted to communicate that. Okay.
May
yes.
I suggest, I received a public comment the other day. I was in a restaurant, and the man at the table next to me as I was leaving said, "Oh, are you on a town committee?" And I said, "Yes," and we were talking, and he said, "Do you know about this piece of property along the lake that the old high school students used to," and he must have been talking about 50 years ago, went out rowing or something from there? I said, "I've never heard of that." And he told me where it was, and I looked at the map, and there is a parcel of town land. Mo told me that this is where the police boat is, and he suggested that might make a nice little beach or something. I'm just offering it as a public comment. I haven't seen the place myself, but apparently it's on the books for town land.
It used to be the old boathouse.
Yeah. So, yeah, if that's, I guess I haven't lived here long enough to know that, but
Is
there it
is
is.
it big enough to have a beach?
It's probably 200
not a
feet.
big beach.
Not a big beach, but sometimes you don't need a big beach.
You have to find out if the police kind of took that over and won it. Because the boats.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to infringe on anything that's
Right.
a safety issue.
That is where the boathouse was. The boathouse for the shells used to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. Okay, so,
We're talking about right off South Quincy, that little
yeah,
bit of land with
Yeah.
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 right across from
It's-
one of the Coolidge
it-
School entrances or something
Yeah.
like
yes, it's
that.
quite
Yeah.
close to that, area.
I mean, it doesn't seem to be a lot of parking even,
No.
No, there never was.
It's kind of, isn't it kind of pie-shaped even?
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, I think there's a narrow entrance from what the map looked like.
So, I mean, I don't know how much of a beach, you could beach, but then you get no place for people to come into it.
Yeah.
Unless you're walkers, I suppose,
Well, I'm just throwing it out, public comment,
Especially
and
with
maybe this guy, I
Sunset
didn't,
no longer there, right?
Yeah.
maybe he lives in the neighborhood.
What?
Sunset Beach.
No, Sunset Beach is still there.
What's it, Tatasset?
Tatasset.
I got the two mixed
The
up?
Tasset's been gone for years.
Okay, that's the one with the condos on it, or whatever housing is on it,
Yeah, there's 3 big houses there.
okay.
Town could have bought that a long time ago, and they passed on it.
So that brings up the issue, of if you do get a comment like that in conversation, is there a place to record it?
Well, that will be rolling into next year's updates, so, and I think we would take that into the public input process.
Okay.
Right now, it's, I mean, you see it commented here, but I don't think, we're not actioning that piece right
Yeah.
now. But, yeah, there was a time and place for the public
Okay.
input, yep.
No, neither, I don't know exactly what's being done, but the selectmen are working on looking at, well, it's town land. They are looking at town land, and they're looking at private land So if you find something like that, you should let them know.
Okay.
Because at some point, they're gonna start contacting landowners, and I know they're looking at land that was tax title land, that we switched it over a couple of town meetings ago.
Yeah, remember that.
So I would get in touch with them, because I know they're working on it.
Okay.
Are they working on additional acquisitions, is that what you're saying, or just?
Not actually actively looking at acquisitions yet, but they're trying to prioritize property.
That they'd like,
And they'll be contacting landowners and just asking them if they do, ask if they want to sell the land. If they do in the future decide to sell the land, to get in touch with the town.
like a first right of
Yeah.
refusal kind of?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, certainly there's a lot of opportunity here through looking through CPA lens, right? So I think touch points that one thing that comes to definitely mind is housing, right? So I think that it's probably the furthest from the majority of our community thinking about it, but it's certainly on our minds because it's one of the 4 pillars, right? CPA, right? And housing, obviously housing authority and affordable housing trust. So I think anytime we see an opportunity for a parcel that makes sense for the community, like near services that make sense, bus servicing, grocery store, et cetera, you know, I think we should definitely keep that in mind and try to act on these things. So I think this is for everybody, right? If you see an opportunity in our community, let's bring this up, bring it to the right party. And like, if there's an opportunity for historic items, right? Just let's promote that. Find the right people to start shopping. You know, to start shopping that idea in their head. Like, oh, what can we do with that? You know, is CPA an opportunity? Maybe CPA monies is not going to be there in time to execute the entire thing, but at least getting the proposal going so that if there's, whether it's town monies that are available, more readily available, with CPA backing later on, if it became, let's say, a historic item that was deemed historic, the Historic Commission, or an opportunity that Housing Authority sees to expand services or parking, you know, parks opportunities, right?
Or a combination thereof.
Combination, yeah, et cetera.
Right? I
Yeah.
think of like Moronis Park behind White City,
Yeah,
right? And there's, I know some houses back there too, but, you know, something that's on the water could be a park kind of housing, kind of co-development kind of thing.
there we go. Just need ideas, and I think the days of saying, well, yeah, there's no money. Well, there's money here. Obviously, we have to be wise about it, but there's money here to
Yeah.
start, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so reining it back into the goals. Is there anything else we need to look at for the goals? I think I mentioned accessibility piece. I would like to just walk through this to see if there's any accessibility. Do we have any gaps with accessibility? We know at a highest level, like CPA legislation talks about accessibility, but I just want to scan this and see if there's anything missing from let's say, recreation. Preserve, improve, and develop safe recreational opportunities. Okay.
Can I make a comment? I don't see anything about utilization of spaces. You know, whether certain spaces in town, park-wise, are underutilized, you know, versus, you know, I would say Dean Park is very utilized, right? But
Overutilized.
well, there's a lot of other parks that aren't necessarily, and I don't know if that's something that should be kind of a goal to increase utilization of some of these areas. Kind of a counterbalance to, instead of acquiring new space, make better utilization of what we already have.
Anybody else have a comment about that? Thoughts about that?
I think that's in line with some of the playground improvements that we're trying to do, is to be able to actually use them and make them more accessible, so you're right on, yeah.
And I guess whatever level of improvements, whether it's playgrounds or something, you know, I don't know if we ever look at, you know, what kind of population surrounds some of these parks that don't have very much parking, but, you know, whether it be a better use of something else in there versus a playground, right? Picnic spot, picnic tables, a pavilion, you know. You gotta keep in mind the youth element partying there, but, you know, there are other things. just
Are we
different.
looking at utilization as being one of the goals? I guess.
Or some level of it in there, right,
Because,
improving it.
You know, again, in my mind, before I was on this committee, well, when I was on the finance committee even, you know, one of the things I kind of thought of pushing was, I'm not gonna pronounce it right, Waukegan Park up there?
One
One
again?
That is a large area that's basically inaccessible. And I know that was in one of these goals to at least start that out, but yeah, you can't, I don't know if you ever tried to walk down there, but the utilization is practically non-existent.
Right, right.
Yes.
But now, if we put something there, then the utilization, see, it's a chicken and egg. If we fix the park up, will the utilization come automatically, I guess? Because in that sense, you know, I would think we should do whatever we can at Waukegan. It's a big enough space to have open areas and then, you know, walking trails, hills, and it's very hilly and everything.
Mhm.
So, you know, people that want to
I wanna
climb
just
hills.
pivot to Chris for a second, sorry, 'cause I know Chris wanted to comment.
Yeah, I just, I think for the utilization, I think that's, more of a need that can be identified. Opportunities to improve utilization would be a need that we could pursue. Just in terms of goals, I think that's what you wanna see as the end process of that it is fully utilized, but, I think it's more of a need. So that would be my recommendation on that.
Even under 2A, you just stick the word utilization in there somewhere.
Isn't that something that's really best addressed through the park, what do you call it, the open space and recreation study? A real comprehensive thing. That's really where it should start.
Yeah, it's like pickleball, right, at the tennis courts at Coolidge, right? You know, suddenly they're being utilized a lot more, right, because of some improvements there. So they're pickleball,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You know, that brings up the interesting point, that we have a lot of ball fields, but there's only certain times when they're really used, and a lot of times they're just vacant, you know, when the kids are in school or whatever. It's too bad we can't get our seniors out there to play ball. You know, we could start something, and maybe they could, you know, a senior league as opposed to a little league. Fresh air, sunshine, get the utilization out of the field, you know?
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
Carl, you brought up a point about the utilization. I think my personal opinion, at 1 out of 9 or 8 today, I go along with Chris in that the utilization really comes into as project proposals come up, and we look at that and saying how you got project A, project B, project C, which one of these is going to best utilize X?
Give us the most bang for the buck, yep,
Exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
okay.
That again was my personal thought. Anybody else? Anybody different opinion? You want to see utilization added or not? This is the time to modify the goals. So, so Kathy, you give me say you're good as is.
Good, yep.
Anybody else? As is, good. You're seem wavering.
I'm trying to balance. I agree with Mo that I think this better belongs with the open space and recreation
Okay.
Plan.
All right.
Than here. At the same time, I would like to see us look at projects from the perspective of who do they benefit, and make sure that they are benefiting the population of Shrewsbury in whatever lens we want to look at that through. If
Right.
that
So,
makes sense.
like underserved areas
Yeah.
of town, whether it's too far to get to a resource.
Right, and just making
Yep.
sure that we're balancing, you know, projects that are in different areas of the town as well.
Okay, makes sense.
I think it would be very useful if we had maps that said, you know, if you had a red dot where every 5-year-old was, and, or, you know, really, or
Oh, it's true, right, it's true.
it could guide your,
They're everywhere.
yeah, they're all running around like squirrels, yeah.
The school department actually does have that. They know everybody by address, number one. But number two, I'll take my development, you know, off of Old Mill Road. Right now, we might have a bunch of 5-year-olds, but 4 years from now, they're all gonna be 8-year-olds. Those people aren't gonna move.
Right.
I've lived there 40 years, I've seen it transition 3 times where kids come in young, graduate, parents move out, and new 5-year-olds show up.
Yes, I know, I've seen that in my own
It's
development.
gonna be
yeah.
a moving target, I guess,
Yeah.
is my point.
I know, but if you saw it at one time, that's the moment you're gonna work for, and then,
But by the time we go through something for 3 years, the target has moved.
Just move the park. I'm only
I know.
joking.
no, but,
Well, we'd have
I-
to cancel the project and go on to the next one. I think. It's always a moving target, I guess, is my concern.
yeah. I suppose the most stable neighborhoods must be the people whose children are grown, but they're not moving.
See, to me, the parks are where they are, okay? You know, not that I want to belabor the point with up here where Beal, the old Beal is, people are complaining. I can walk across the street to the park. I moved here 40 years ago, we didn't have a park. We drove to the park, okay? We went to different parks. Our kids played in almost every park in this town. I didn't have one across the street, okay? But, you know, to me, that's not a valid complaint, that they're gonna take the park away from me that's across the street.
Mhm.
There's enough parks in town if you wanna take your kid to a park.
Mhm.
It's not much farther over to
Yeah, yeah.
municipal.
So I
park.
think certainly there's concern, some members of the community are concerned about the, it's an existing resource and our committees
Sure. That's,
tracks
Like-
resources in our community. That's going, that parcel's going to change if it does change, right? If it keeps going. But I just want to bring us back to the goals because I think I brought up a part about accessibility before we moved to move it. I think accessibility was already covered there. I think through the safe 2A, preserve, improve, develop safe recreational opportunities. So I know that I'm reading that and like, okay, that's ringing in my ear. Like, okay, I heard it. It's reflected here at a highest level, at a broad level. And then 2B, improving access and connectivity to existing and future sites. This is recreation goals. So I know as a member of this committee, I would be tuning into recreation accessibility as I heard those as those needs were raised when I was a community commission on disabilities. And as you all went through different committees, I have some of them obviously you're a member of. Definitely do keep those things in mind as you hear project proposals, come through us this year. Okay. Anything else for open space and recreation before we move on to the other 2 goals, Chris?
Just a suggestion, if we wanted to bolster 2A for ADA accessibility, we could just add in preserve, improve, and develop safe recreational opportunities for all ages and abilities.
Beautiful.
Ah, very nice.
Call it out,
And-
be explicit.
Yeah. I like your. Anybody else? Anybody?
No, that sounds good.
Comments? Questions? You good? Okay. All right. I think exactly as you said it, Chris. Thank you. All right. Anything ring to you, Gail, as our historic
No,
commission?
no
Rep.
changes.
Okay. And Kathy, anything for housing?
That pretty much sums it up.
Still good?
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else in the committee? Last call for goals for this year. All right. All right, there we have it.
Okay.
Goals are set. All right, so heat map is done. That will just be added as updating the appendix page on that. Thank you. Goals are good. You already commented earlier about the front page being changed, so yeah, I think I'm personally okay with going on as we discussed and trusting as Chris has already discussed what he was going to modify and improving on that basis. Does anybody have any concern with doing so? Any questions before we take a vote? Okay. All right, so may I have a motion to approve the FY24 Community Preservation Plan as discussed in the last 40 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the Community Preservation Plan, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. All right, we are approved. Thank you very much. Okay, next order of business is number 5, the request for qualifications. Right.
Yep, so, on this one, I apologize, I kind of mentioned that the timeline I thought was gonna be a little bit tight. I did get to work on the RFQ, but I don't have it to a place where I, am really comfortable sharing it with, the committee tonight, so, with your permission, I'd like to move that to the next meeting, and I'll have that prepared. I should be able to finish that up early, and I'll have it, in, the meeting folder for the next meeting. I'll try to get it at least 2 weeks in advance, if not more, so that you have time to review it before the meeting, so.
Appreciate that, thank you. And I think, just because this was a point that John brought up last time, the item says here, RFQ for CPC support retainer, and this is actually not a retainer, right? You're not,
No, so the discussion was looking at an RFQ, utilizing the 5% administrative budget for, essentially a consultant to provide, kind of an as-needed, number of hours. We'll define that kind of scope, together, but, kind of an hourly allotment, they would, be just kind of at will as needed, that we can reach out to them and, have any questions related to CPC, and hopefully get a timely and, accurate response. Just a little more expertise in that area.
right. Yeah, I think the key word there was retainer. You weren't crazy about retainer, as I recall, and Chris, you clarified. I just want to make sure I'm clarifying here correctly.
Yeah.
It's not a retainer, that's what's here, right? Just so that's not in the minutes
Would
as a
you
retainer.
call it what you want? The only thing I felt we shouldn't do is hire somebody. If they put in the quote, I'll be on call, but it's a $20,000 fee throughout the year.
Right, and
And I don't wanna pay the money up front before I utilize anything.
right, and and that's why I think that's why I was holding on the retainer, because that's what it implies, that
Fee
you're
for service,
prepaying.
right?
I mean, we can structure it however the committee sees. I think the most effective way would be a fee-for-service consultant basis, and then a do not exceed. We obviously don't want to do the whole 5%, but we could do a portion of that 5% with a do not exceed amount.
Do we have to include in the request qualifications? Only because these days, in my opinion, a lot of people out there self-identify themselves as experts. And you know, like a real good lawyer, like say the legal people we use for the town, wanna charge you $300 an hour. Some guy comes in and says, I'll charge you 100 in water. And you have to go with the low bidder when that person may not be that well versed in what we want them to do. So how do we know that they're qualified, I guess, becomes the question.
So that would be, so request for qualifications, that's specifically what we're looking for. Proposals that I'm familiar with are more kind of engineering or kind of planning work related, but typically what you'll have firms provide is an hourly basis, what the hourly rate is. They typically, depending upon the size of the firm, may have certain levels of staff, and depending upon complexity of work, they'll assign those staff members, within their firm. But they typically provide essentially like a resume of the staff that would be allocated to those hours for the town.
Yeah, they usually give you references
Yeah,
and
references, you
experience.
check references and stuff, yeah.
I have a question.
Please.
Could you give a little bit of an overview as to what this person would be doing? I personally feel as though, I think we talked about this way back when we were establishing the whole CPC, about having somebody on retainer or hiring somebody to help out with CPA projects. We talked about having somebody, like a part-time person in the planning department that would be designated to work on CPA projects. Is that what we're doing? I mean, are we hiring a lawyer, or are we hiring somebody that's qualified in Community Preservation Act things? It's like what that's familiar with the process. Not all lawyers are familiar with the process of CPA. As John mentions, you know, they may think they are, but what is this person supposed to do? Are they just helping us through the process, or are they doing the legal work that town council can't do? You know, what is the purpose of this person?
So that would be something, the RFQ will have a scope of services, and that'll be, it'll be a broad look at scope of services, so we would talk about, you know, what I would envision, and we'll put in the draft RFQ, is looking at, a consultant, whether it's a legal background or whatever their expertise is, but providing that high-level support, and expertise, so as we have, projects come in, reviewing eligibility and that, and providing some of that staff support. You know, what we can discuss in terms of that scope, do we want to have them managing the, you know, the projects with the co-sponsors, or do we want to leave that in the planning department? But this would be, as an RFQ, this would be advertising as a consultant services. If we wanted to have a staff member in the planning department doing that, we would have to go through a different process. And that's still an option, but it would be a different procedure for that.
Yeah. So my perspective on it is that the times that we wanted to reach out to the coalition, Community Preservation Coalition, as the single body in the state that proposes CPA and helps communities adopt it and can field questions like, is my project eligible? That's why I would want to have a RFQ, is for that time when I pick up the bat phone and say, help. Is this eligible?
Right, I agree.
Because it's some of these, like the ISW project from last year. We originally reached out, we got a response A, yeah, it sounds eligible, but I think it was a quick response, given that we're one of 189, at that time, 190 plus communities that adopted. This one person can't handle all committees'
Right.
questions. And so I want to be able to pick up that phone and if someone's able to be there and say, yeah, I think you're onto something here, whether it's legal or not. But not process related. Like, I think we have a handle on process. So it really is about eligibility checks. There's a nuances relative to, let's say, housing, right? Let's say, you know, that's gonna be a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Or historic, right? We start getting into the weeds of like, a private homeowner wants to endeavor on this. And how do we make sure that the community is protected by public investment in someone's personal?
Because we still do have town council to help us out as well, from what I mean, we're not restricted in using town council,
Yeah,
so.
we can't just pick up the phone and call town council.
Well, no, but there's, according to what I understood in the whole process, is that town council is available to us should we need them.
Through
right?
the manager.
So-
Yeah, we can't just pick up the phone.
Well, I don't know. That's not how I understand it. If we need them, we call town council.
Not supposed to. Actually, it's supposed to be through the selectmen, but it goes through the town manager. But
Well,
they're
regardless,
available, but I mean,
they're available, so we
just want to
don't
make sure it's,
need another
Yes, but
council as much as a coalition-type person to guide us through the
No.
process.
So
Yeah.
I think in the end, you're paying, it's about the dollars for someone who's aligned with CPA versus someone who's a generalist.
Correct.
And that's where my concern would be.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know if I'm going to spend an hour with somebody that they know.
So the qualification should reflect
town
that.
council, they have the depth. That's the issue. The consultant we would get through an RFQ that works on this is going to be a lot less expensive than calling town council.
So dollars and cents and expertise. Are you okay with that, Gail, or any other questions?
As long as the qualifications reflect what we're looking for, yeah, but I
Well,
won't
they-
know that until you get the
Right.
so.
We work with it all the time. And housing, I think Hector Cruz would be a really good resource. He knows that really, really well. That was his business,
Yeah, so great to have already existing
He was
expertise on the committee.
affordable housing.
right. So, yeah, definitely leveraging people that exist already on the committee, right? But what I'm saying was like, if there's something that's oddball,
Yeah,
we would just.
no,
try
I
to
think you're
leverage
right.
it.
It's like, you get people who do it every day.
Any concern,
No, it's
input you
fine.
wanna,
No, I trust Chris will put it together.
all right. Anybody else have questions, concerns, comments about RFQ for what we're trying to do? I know Chris has to write it, but do you have any input now? Questions? Looks like Martha, you have a question.
I have an well, it's a higher level question. How is the CPA Coalition consultant, how is that funded? How is that supported?
By the dues that we pay. So that should be, I think, October or September, is our annual dues,
Mhm.
which we would need to take a vote on to expend money for our annual, we accepted that last year. And I'm recommending that when we get to that question, that we continue to be a member of the coalition. That's how that.
So
that's
if
how they
there,
pay
so
for
if
it.
there are
$1,000 or so, is that right?
if there are 195 communities and they are paying dues, it sounds like there is potentially more support needed at the coalition level. And we can't solve that immediately, but perhaps in the future, we wouldn't need to have a private somebody on retainer. Or
Right,
as needed, consultant as needed,
fee for service.
right, fee for service.
The
yeah.
crunch might have been seasonal, too.
Right, because it's annual
Yeah.
town meeting cycle, and everybody wants to. My question is very important. I need your answer right now.
Yes.
Right.
It's so 100 other communities. Yeah. Right. I think that's an opportunity to see where the coalition's heading from their strategic plan. And if you're not already following the coalition, I recommend you do. Right, to get their newsletter, find out what's going on, and it's a great audience to see. That's a Community Preservation Coalition. We can certainly talk offline if you want to
They're
learn
very-
more about them.
They're very good about reporting legislative actions,
Yeah.
progress and lack
Good or
thereof.
bad.
All right.
Could someone share the link to that? If not now, maybe follow up with it?
Just, communitycoalition.org, I think. Okay. It's either com or-
It's www.communitypreservation.org.
Yeah.
Communitypreservation.org. So anybody who is watching this video and thinking, what do I go to a coalition for? That's the organization that is supporting CPCs and CPA adoption throughout the state. If you want to understand a general understanding, generally about CPA, definitely go to that coalition's website. There you also find opportunities to see what other communities have done with CPA monies. But the caveat there is that those communities elected to approve those projects, that doesn't mean that it is, that's something that would be approved here. This our CPC would have to review those projects to check for our perspective on eligibility. Okay. Any other questions about the coalition and the RFQ? Okay. All right, moving on to next steps. I think the important thing we're going to talk about is the next meeting, which is the application workshop. And I believe Chris, you had a conversation with Chair Mooney, right, about that? No, okay. My understanding is that we were starting at 6:30.
Oh.
Right, we're starting early at 6:30, and that we'll get on with the business of the committee first, right? Is that right? And then we'll reach a point in the meeting where it's all right now. We're going to. Yeah, this is where I wasn't clear from the message I received on that. Can we adjourn, saying this is what we're going to do, and then we'll just have. I wasn't sure how that
Yeah.
open meeting piece of it worked
Yeah,
out.
thank you. So the way we envisioned it is that it would be the regular business meeting, fairly quick process, go through that. We were going to give an opportunity to anyone who attended, if they wanted to introduce their project for the public meeting, we would do that. And obviously, we'll work with people that show up to figure out who, a little bit of what the projects are before they attend. Or at the public meeting, what we can do is allocate no more than 2 members, and we'll do breakout sessions for each of those. So if a project is really, open space related, we'll depending upon the project, we'll kind of pick 2 members to work with each of those kind of workshop sessions. And so we'll adjourn and then do the breakout session with.
I don't know
What?
if he's answering the question you asked.
Why would you do that? Why would you break up the meeting? Then you can't
Right.
reconvene at the end.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just keep the meeting and just break out into sessions?
And then adjourn at the very end of it.
Yeah, what if you want to come back at the end of the meeting? You can just say you're going to break up into groups and you reconvene at the end.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be too.
So ultimately, I just want to make sure, as vice chair,
Well,
I'm interested in knowing that we are good with open meeting, right? Just, that's
yes.
foremost, as long as we clear that, so.
You're better off just staying and just keep the meeting going. And then at the end, if you want to reconvene to wrap up or something, you can do it. And if somebody else comes into the room and all of a sudden you got 3 people in the workshop, you don't have to worry about violating the open meeting law.
No, he might know the logic better, but if I remember from our finance committee, like when we used to go through the town warrant, we would open our meeting, we would go through the previous minutes, we'd go through a few business items, then we'd make a motion and say it's now an open meeting for the public,
No, it's a public hearing.
Public hearing.
Okay.
in effect.
Yeah, it's still the
And
same
then
meeting.
Everybody could comment, and yeah, it's still the same meeting, and then we would close, when we're done, we would close the public hearing, and then we'd finish our meeting, if nothing more than to adjourn our meeting.
I think, so you both
Yeah,
hearing the same thing?
same thing.
Yeah.
Now, my recollection is the last time we did this, I took minutes throughout the whole public hearing thing. It was 11 pages of minutes, and I remember that vividly.
Yeah.
So that was clearly, we were not adjourned, apparently.
Okay, yeah, I think,
So-
and I think that's, I think that point we would just note, participant,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it, like, or if there's a name, if they want to offer a name to what their subject is, but that, I wouldn't.
Oh, I
like
don't
get
need to
the
go
back
into
and
the
forth.
whole detail?
I personally don't think that's. it will have to be
It's a
brought
little
up, yeah.
laborious,
No, but
I'll tell you.
I'm glad you're asking the question now, so that,
Yes,
up all night saying, what did I say?
Is the next meeting the workshop?
Yes,
Or
it's a workshop and regular meeting
yeah,
so
on
it's
September
both?
11th.
yes.
Just besides the workshop, so they understand the application process, they can start making presentations.
So they're not making presentations, this is more of an open forum to hear out anybody's opinion. So, let's say participant A comes in and says, I have an idea to pitch, don't know where to get started. Okay, we'll start about that. Participant B comes in and says, I have an idea, I've already talked to Parks, and, happens to be on Conservation Commission owned land. What do I do next? Right. C, it's a department head who says, what do you think? Do you think I should bring this through municipal budget season, or should I bring it through CPC? We'll see, right? Talk about that. So I think it's open to whoever the participants are. I'm hoping there are participants. So I think to my question on that is advertising. How has that been, I don't know if this has been discussed with Chair Mooney.
Yeah, I'm still preparing the materials, but I should
Okay.
send those out shortly for the workshop.
All right, thank you. All right, I think, I'm hearing 2 for continuing the meeting.
Yeah,
You out?
One meeting.
Are you, Chris, are you have any?
Yeah, I'm happy with that process. We'll do is just the regular meeting, go into either breakout groups, or depending upon how many people show up, we could just have a hearing presentation, kind of informal work with them, and then reconvene to adjourn.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody have any questions, concerns about the approach to the application workshop? Basically, we will see how many people come in. If it seems to be a lot, then we'll kind of tailor it down. I think we'll do a cap on the meeting time. Can we at least agree on a cap? We're starting at 6:30.
When are you gonna start the workshop?
It
7.
Probably isn't much
Yeah.
to discuss.
6:45.
We got the plan updated. I mean, it's up to,
Just the RFQ.
it's up
really.
to Chair Mooney to set the agenda, but, my perspective, I don't see much in the way, right? It's just RFQ
Yeah.
at this point. Right, so maybe it's
6:45?
probably.
Okay.
But ending, I think we should have an end cap so that everyone knows what time they're gonna be
7:45?
heading out here for the glass of wine.
Kathy doesn't last past 8:30.
8:30, I hear 8:30?
I'm confused.
Yes.
You want it,
I think we should have a cap so that we have understanding about,
a cap on the workshop time?
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
cap-
how long we're gonna let it
how long the
run.
meeting should go to, yeah. We're starting at
Because we could
6:30.
talk all night on this.
Yes, we could.
Yeah,
We
that's
could,
Some-
we
yeah,
have.
If 15 people show up, what do you just give them 5 minutes each?
We can work backwards on that, yeah, based on that.
What I'd recommend is, some communities do caps on their, like, planning board meetings, and it's, they have it at 10 o'clock. We can do it 8:30, and that's the cap, and the board has to take a vote to extend beyond that time.
You know,
I'm gonna break
can
off
always
into
dis-
little,
We'll dismiss you early.
All right. All right, so we don't need to spend 30 minutes debating that part. I hear 8:30. Anybody else has a different opinion? 8:30?
8:30 is good.
Check in, 8:30?
I think that's
Good.
good.
All right, there we go, 8:30 check-in. Good. All right. Anything else to prepare for the application workshop, Chris? That we need to discuss here? Okay.
Will we
My-
have copies of the applications and things like that for the people, or just let them go online?
Hard copies?
I don't know. Hard copies?
We can print
We
hard copies if
probably
you
should have
prefer.
hard copies.
Yeah.
Yes, we probably should have some hard copies available for,
Not everybody's coming with a proposal. They're coming to find out how to do their proposal, so it might be helpful for them to have something, either on a board or
notes on.
something to see. Visuals.
right, I think, because it's several pages, and my
Yeah,
concern is,
right.
sometimes the visual here is hard to see, if you're in the audience member, you'll say, what was that on page 10?
Right.
Question, so, any concerns? Few copies?
Well, even if there's just one copy, something,
Your discretion.
poster boards.
No.
No.
Sorry, my personal opinion. No. Anybody else? Anything else?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll work through it.
Question, is it possible to turn one of these so that it faces the audience?
Sure.
And I would volunteer, I've got this, I can share with Gail, so I'm happy if that one gets turned.
There's one behind you.
You guys need this
Yeah,
one.
right.
Oh,
we can't see that one anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can see that and that.
okay.
all right, so a hard copy at least? Okay. Anything else? Screen, obviously, this, you can see it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Preparation for the application workshop? Okay. All right, advertising is out there, okay. Advertising also for the application process, that's the main, if we don't have applicants, we don't have a year.
It'll be a fast night.
It'll be a fast year, nothing to propose. Has the application process been promoted yet? through-
Sorry, I was taking notes.
Sure, sorry, okay. On the topic of advertising, have the application process been communicated out through our CPC channel and also sent over to the select board to inform them that
So it's,
open season?
it's on the website live. We're still gonna do the, kind of regular advertising for it, and, I can send it over to the select board, tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Okay, one thing I noticed, Chris, I think the application, the PDF, needs to be reviewed. I think there was a page break in there with the header. We don't have to go through it here, I'm just noting that I observed that there was a page break issue with the PDF, the application, doc. It's just something just to republish. Okay,
Is there a Facebook post about it? Can we
We'll do
post-
that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Taylor does all that, right?
cool. All right, anybody else, anything else? Okay, so application workshop next time, we're meeting, different room.
Police station.
There we go, 6:30. Okay. And
And maybe some signage here that tells people it's at the police station for our guests, because they may just assume it's here.
Where are we meeting?
Police department.
The next meeting is at the police department? Is that a good idea? We're gonna have a workshop at the police department?
Russ, you commented on the last meeting about the orientation of that room. It could work.
Yeah, I mean,
Then it could work out.
it sets out as an amphitheater. I can also look at see if the COA is available, but I think there was a conflict for meeting space there. I'd have to double check. But
So if we are somewhere.
So you're
else,
not gonna be able to
there's
have a
some
little
signage.
station set up over there? I thought you were gonna have places where you'd have a couple of members, and then people could go and talk about projects, or somebody could talk about historic preservation, open space. You can do that over there, it's your stuff.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's more like the community. I thought it was more like people coming to the committee to kind of discuss what ideas they had more than.
And what was the two people thing?
I guess if you have breakouts, like if it was really nuanced, let's say somebody really wanted to talk about historic preservation, it was in like 8 people are like, I have no idea, but Gail has everything about it.
I know, it's just
Um,
wealth of knowledge.
Gail and another member could join in on the fun of that conversation. I think last year we certainly had, I think it was very high level that a lot of folks wanted to engage in that. And even if you're not familiar with historic preservation as an example, the whole committee has to hear it anyway when it comes to proposal, right? So I think it was a good exercise.
But didn't you have breakouts in groups?
That was at the
No.
public input, the first time we had the
Oh, okay.
public
At the
session, yeah.
library.
All right,
Yeah, with
Time
tables and
passes.
signage, yeah.
How
I
many,
thought you were gonna break out in groups.
how many,
like they did
how many
over the
people
library.
attended the last workshop? Was it a lot?
Probably
15?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah?
15, yeah, there was a.
Oh,
About
Is-
15.
Does the old selectmen's meeting room used for anything?
The old selectmen's reading room?
Yeah, you know,
The School department now.
Yeah.
no, down the hall by the,
See, it's the school.
oh, isn't it? Oh, okay. I haven't been down there, down by the
They
planning.
divided it into 2 rooms. It's not there anymore. You never recognize it.
I knew they changed the other end. I didn't know they went down there.
Oh, yeah.
so, I want to, Kathy brought up a point about, have signage here so that, public.
People who just assume
know.
it's here will be
Yes.
directed there.
Yeah, so wherever that there is, and I think there is a concern about where there is.
Oh, I thought we were doing it a different way, so.
Oh, so you good you good?
I
Okay.
thought we were doing it like at the,
Yeah.
like the way, at the library, we have, easel here, easel there.
Oh, right. So,
If we're not.
I mean, I think we can be flexible that depending upon how many people show up and what the needs are. If it's, 5 people, we can do small breakout groups in that group. Yeah.
There's the hall, so you could step out into the hall. You could probably put people in different corners of that
I
amphitheater.
think we want to, I think we want to keep rolling with the open meeting and bring everybody together. I think we should, I would rather.
It still could be posted as an
Yeah,
open
but I
meeting.
think it's good to have everybody here, if we can.
Mm.
If we could manage it being one meeting, everyone together, because I think there's value to everyone hearing.
Mhm.
If no one comes for affordable housing, what is Kathy gonna do,
Right.
right? And
She
we
can
wanna make
hang
sure.
with me.
Yeah, I'll hang
You can hang
conservation.
with me.
Conservation, right? So, okay,
Is there, how's the parking situation over there?
It's gonna be fine, because they're paving either tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay.
I mean, you could walk from here.
and it looks like it's
You
gonna
know?
be beautiful, yeah.
That's-
All right,
Oh, it's a
Anything
good
else? Any other
100
comments?
feet, isn't it?
or we,
It should be finished by then.
awesome.
Putting the base
Come
coat
on.
down
Yeah,
tomorrow,
it's
and
a
they're gonna
month
put the
away.
curb in there. We'll start.
Yeah, this is
All
September
right.
11th we're talking about.
Sounds like we're ready to adjourn.
Okay, are we ready to adjourn?
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.